How's it going, everyone? So, I've recently finished up Doom Eternal, and I've kind of let my thoughts sit, and now I'm going to be covering it, because quite honestly, it seems like most people are either really loving it, or they're not that in love with it at all. And I'm going to try to be as objective as possible, even though I do have strong feelings about this game. Having said that, I'm going to be covering this review with the question of, is this game worth the $60 price tag that it released with? As well as a few caveats that might make or break this game for you. And before we jump into the review proper, let me just remind you to go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Definitely, if you enjoy more critical reviews, where the entire point is to really see if they're worth the money that you put into it. I mainly cover looter shooters as well as some FPS and MMO stuff. I do want to branch out eventually into some other gaming arenas, but that will be for later. So with that out of the way, let me just go ahead and jump into the review. I'll start this review off with the story, because I think it's the best place to start with, since while it isn't that important, it's still quite nice and easy to go over. With that, yes, Doom Eternal has cutscenes, and there is a fair number of them compared to past Doom entries. This isn't really much of a problem since you can just skip them. The other two interesting ways that Doom Eternal does story is through the collectible lore pages, as well, if you read the lore, the level design also tells a story that you don't fully get unless if you do your homework, which I'm a sucker for. I always love explorable lore and storytelling. Now, before I talk any more about the story itself, I feel like I need to at least say that I started with Doom 3 and never really played the games before that. I generally knew the story of the older games, I just never played them, and I only looked up more specific parts of the lore after playing Doom Eternal a little bit more. And I say this because Doom Eternal's story does thread all of the other games together quite nicely, but it doesn't break the story itself if you don't know about stuff in the previous games. Even if you've never played Doom 2016, it isn't really important. You might not know who a few characters are, but the story doesn't lean too heavy into knowing who's who. I will say, however, that there was one reference that does somewhat change the meaning of the story if you don't know about it, and that's why Doomslayer hates demons. I'll just point that out so you can look that up, because it turns it from the meaning of one scene in the game to be somewhat hilarious, to be somewhat funny, at least for me. So with that, I think I've covered everything I want to for the story. It is what it is. It's not essential, but it's there. It adds a little bit to the game, or you can just skip it altogether. Up to you. Now, let me get into the sound design and music. Well, specifically the music. You know, I don't think I really have to say that it's a home run. I think it'll be a little bit foolish to try to commentate on something that is perfection. You can look up the OSTs yourself, it's perfect. The sound design is just as good because, well, I don't know exactly how they do it, but you feel like you're on the gun range and can smell the gunpowder from every single shot. Just listen to some of the sound effects for the guns. One other topic that I will just mention is the graphics, which I was looking back on the 2018 reveal trailer, and I've basically realized that there were no downgrades. In fact, there might be just ever so slight upgrades. However minute they might be. There are some things that have changed, but that's something that I think is important to note. Okay, so let me just get to the nitty-gritty, the more critical part of this review, and that is the gameplay. Now, I will say here that I think what many people might find to be a turnoff is actually a fantastic change, but it can still be a turnoff nonetheless. And what am I talking about? Well, the gameplay. Now, back in 2016, Doom, that iteration of it, was, well, let me just go ahead and say it, a brain-dead shooter. there was nothing really wrong about it, because there are plenty of times you just wanted to get home from a bad day at work and just offload all of your frustrations on a bunch of demons who basically you didn't have to really work to kill. This game, however, is the antithesis of a brain dead shooter, because if you are not constantly thinking on what to do next, the game will punish you severely. If not with your life, it will be with all of your enjoyment of the game. I'm talking specifically about the fact that they've designed this game to be a little bit more like Dark Souls, though it doesn't do so with just the pure lethality of the enemies and the gameplay. It's more around how you manage your Slayer. You have far less ammunition that you can carry at any one time, which forces you to use the chainsaw, which gives you back ammunition from kills. But you can't use it on larger enemies, so you have to save the cannon fodder enemies to use your chainsaws or just quick glory kills to get health. And it's a cycle of, okay, you're running low on ammunition, then you need to start looking for opportunities to get a chainsaw kill. You're low on health, you need to either get armor with a flamethrower, or you need to find an enemy that you can quickly glory kill or use a blood punch to get back health drops, because there are no real good other means to get resources. There are drops, but they're very small in the amount that you can really pick up. And I like this about the game because it adds a level of complexity that was not in Doom 2016. And I think that that game needed something like this. I do know a lot of players don't like this system, and I believe that's fair up to the point of where they start complaining of how they have no way to replenish their ammunition, and then want to complain into which they can't use their chainsaw on bigger enemies whenever it was not designed. There's only 2 fights that the fodder enemies are not enemies that you can use the chainsaw with, and that's the second to the last fight and the final boss. And those have special circumstances that I don't really want to talk about because spoilers. But here's the one thing I have to mention about the chainsaw. It always refills at least one thing of fuel every 30 seconds to a minute. So the game always gives you a way to replenish your resources. You just have to know how to restore them. And I understand those people who don't like the system, but there's also a lot of them that want to say that it's bad game design whenever it's not. I believe people have the right to say that they don't like a game based on design choices, but I find it very silly whenever people try to justify that something is bad game design based on their frustration. I don't know. I've said where I stand on this matter, and I've tried to give credit to the people that may not agree with me. But still, what do you guys think? Am I just silly, or maybe I'm onto something? Let me know down below, but let me move on to the next topic, which is the platforming. This is another bit of contention because some people like the platforming. It's not too invasive. It's basically the low periods of the game that allows you to get some of that adrenaline out of your system so your heart doesn't explode, because running on all cylinders all the time for hours on end isn't very conducive to your health. But long story short, if you enjoy platforming in FPS games, then this will endure the game to you. If not, then it's just going to be annoying and you're not going to like it. The last topic that I want to talk about before I summarize everything is the difficulty of this game and the different difficulty settings that you can put it on. When I first played the game and did my first playthrough, I set it on the normal default Hurt Me Plenty. And throughout the game, I switched it between the different difficulty settings to see how it went. And I gotta say, I discovered one important thing that I'm actually rather surprised and pleased to find. And that's, they didn't just crank the health up just to make it more difficult. It takes the same amount of shots to kill one demon in all difficulty modes. They just really turned up the aggression and the damage that they can dish out, meaning that you have far less margin of error to not get yourself killed. And I actually find this very refreshing. I'll also say that at the beginning of the game, it's going to be more of a pain in the you-know-what just to get going, because you don't have all of the things that you need to kind of keep that whole flow of combat. You'll constantly run out of ammunition just because you don't have the guns to switch to. You won't have your dashes to easily dodge away from projectiles, stuff like that. But as you move forward in the game does somewhat make it more manageable with the threats they throw at you. This leads into the problem that if you go back to the earlier stages, the game seems boringly easy though. And that was kind of really annoying me until I found out about the master levels, which is the solution to the very problem I just stated. They put in monsters and demons that would otherwise not be in the earlier stages to give that extra challenge for once you unlock everything. So all in all, I have to say that how they handle the difficulty of this game is right on point. I think this finally brings us to the question, is this game worth $60? I think yes. Definitely if you want something that challenges you, that pushes you to think constantly and evolve your strategy, then yes, I most definitely would recommend this game. Now, if you want something that is just to blow off steam and just relax after a long day, just you don't want to think, no, this game isn't really that. I think Doom 2016 is far more what you might be looking for in that case. Anyways, if you found this helpful, entertaining, or whatnot, then why don't you go ahead and hit the thumbs up and subscribe to the channel, seeing that I will be doing some more reviews in this vein soon. Thanks for watching the video, and I will see you in the next one.